Hey everybody. So I'm going to take a little bit of time right now to explain the Winston Cup, its rules and different formats, as well as some changes. Because this video is important because this video that hasn't existed yet, and we are going to be incorporating some changes to the standard Winston Cup format. And I think this would be a good time rather than any to go into those. So, what is the Winston Cup? The Winston Cup is a uh, f- the Winston Cup is a uh, community that allows people to that runs tournaments run by me, Evan from HIMedia, that has different folks doing have different rankings. We've done lots of different games, as you can see here in front of you. We have a specific ban list that can be found at himedia.gg/ban list, and we use the standard Master Duel ban list plus whatever is found here on the Winston Cup site. All right. We are now going to be separating the Winston Cup into 4 separate formats underneath the Winston Cup, and that includes the Winston Cup War Crimes, which is just unlimited Pot of Greed, Cyberstein, Metamorphosis, just Goat format plus everything else, just War Crimes abound. Second is going to be Meta Sheep. This is just following the standard Master Duel ban list. If you play the Duelist Cup, if you play unranked, this is what we're playing. Just standard, run of the mill, bring out your decks, Winston Cup. We have the Winston Club Classic, which follows the standard Master Duel ban list plus whatever is found as the image. This is what at time of release last night's Winston Cup is. And then lastly, the new standard format, which if this is very unpopular, I'll scrap it, but is going to be this, which is going to be following the standard Master Duel ban list plus whatever is found at himedia.gg-ban list, and it's going to have the added stipulation of an NR. So only normal and rare cards can be used, with the added exception of 3 URs and 6 SRs. So what does that mean? What that means is that you can only build a deck with normal and rarity cards. Now, there's a lot of decks that need a handful of SRs and URs to be able to function. Shadalls are one, Invoked is another. So, with that in mind, you can include up to but no more than 3 URs and 6 SRs. Archetypes that most of their or all of their engine is NRs, they can splurge for a Max C or an Ash Blossom or 2. But archetypes like, again, your Invoked and your Shadalls, things like your Shadal Fusion or your Invocation are locked behind URs, and you wouldn't be able to use them otherwise. And so being able to have access to a couple of the playmakers that you need to make your deck run well keeps the options open and prevents the NR format from being too limiting, on top of the limits and bannings that we already have here, because I still want this ban list to matter. I still want people to play decks that they want to play, and I want to keep the ceiling lower. But by and large, that's kind of the goal as far as I'm concerned. So, just to reiterate, the Winston Cup standard format is NR+. NR+ being NR rarity cards only, plus up to 3 URs and up to 6 SRs. The 3 URs and 6 SRs ratio, I'm completely open to tweaking that. I'm going to update the Winston Cup page to reflect any particular changes that happen with that. The Winston Cup is very much a live thing that is constantly growing and changing and moving. It's not a set in stone thing necessarily. Except fucking tier. Those motherfuckers are never getting off that goddamn ban list. I should tell you what. The Winston Classic is what the Winston Cup has been up until this point. I recognize, it's important to keep that, and that's fine. Meta sheep. Sometimes it's always good to just bring out your pre-made decks, especially if people don't have anything new ready to go. And the Winston Cup War Crimes, which is a new format, which some people have made some. I know I made a couple Pot of Greeds for the Goat format tournament. That at time of recording was just a few weeks ago. I'd like to use them again. Maybe the Metamorphosis of the Cyberstein I made. Who knows? Why am I doing this? I'm sure you guys are asking, like, oh, Evan, why are you changing this? One of the biggest things that has made people's participation in the Winston Cup difficult has been the ability to create decks. And the reason why I'm doing this is because, yes, building for the Winston Cup is fun. Building for the Winston Cup and participating in it is fun. It's a fun format. There are people that do definitely enjoy the format. And one of the things that I think has been difficult is, especially for the free-to-play players, is UR and SRs, and especially URs, are not cheap, especially when you want to play certain types of decks. I recognize that making the limiting the amount of URs and SRs that are available will also nix certain kinds of decks. I know that Blue Eyes is effectively going to be put here. I know that Cyber Dragon is probably going to be as well, unfortunately. And for to have low in again, this is just a test pilot. I'm open to saying this many URs in the extra, this many URs in the main, and just make changes like that, and things of that nature. I think I don't want to ban hand traps. I like if you can fit them, play them. They're tools there for a reason. This is primarily to make it so people can build a deck and kind of across the board artificially lower the amount of bullshit that you might have to deal with. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of bullshit decks that still have a lot of access to some shenanigans within this with just NR if you don't even include the URs and SRs. But I think it's very important. Excuse me. It's like 3 a.m. when I'm recording this. I think it's very important to sort of keep the price aspect of things lowered. Because there have been people who did want to partake, who like I did a short notice Winston Cup, and they couldn't play, they couldn't partake because they didn't have a format compliant deck because they had because the new hotness had just come out and they just deconstructed all of their URs to go make fucking like Pearly or some shit, and they didn't have anything that was compliant. And they couldn't play. And I couldn't make exceptions for them because then they would just stomp everybody. And that would, yes, I want everybody to enjoy themselves. And I want people to partake, but I also want people to enjoy themselves too, So, this is going to make deck building a little more complicated. Maybe even a little more difficult. But what I think it's ultimately going to do is, for decks like Sprite, which have, you will have to make decisions. Do you want to run, 2 blue and a starter? Do you want to run 2 elf and a gigantic, and then just go into them and then supplement it with other level 2 engines? Do you want to do one of each in the main deck, like an elf, a gigantic, and a blue? These are things that people are going to have to make decisions on. But what it's also going to do is it's going to allow people that want to make fun, interesting, and new decks and try different things outside of the meta um, it'll give them the opportunity to do so, and I think that's really important. Um, Again, this isn't set in stone. I'm not married to 3 URs, 6 SRs. That was just through some of my experimentation, just on my end, that a number ratio that felt okay. I'm open to upping those to a certain degree, like or even like making like separating URs, like decoupling the main and extra deck in those regards. Um, Especially since there's so many like important playmakers in the extra deck and things of that nature. But um, it remains to be seen, and I'm open to getting some feedback, and I'd love to get some feedback from you guys. And yeah, that's that's the word. Thank you guys so much for playing TWC, the TWC format. Um, I appreciate you. If you want to partake in the Winston Cup, and you've made it to the end of this video, and you've never, you know, and you haven't played a round of it, you haven't joined the Discord, you haven't joined that. Please do so. You can go to himedia.gg/discord or hit the invite link down below. Um, all of the updates for the Winston Cup are done there. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate your time and your viewership, and I will see you next time.